fucking roof!
All right, what do you reckon?
All right. Tahi Rua Turifa.
Michael Turner.
I don't want to do this.
You're
Mate,
here now.
You finally popped out of the house. It's rock and roll.
Alrighty, turn it on.
It's on, mate.
Welcome.
You shitting me?
Yeah. Sorry, we'll cut the first bit out.
What's going on in the world? Mate, look, Michael, welcome. Welcome to our house.
Under the Bali Rooftop.
I can't believe it's the first time you've come over. It's pretty crazy. We've talked about this for a long time.
Yeah, neither can I. It's a pleasure to be here, but apart from anything else, I've been angling for an invite to the Bali Rooftop for a couple of fucking years, and I've had no love whatsoever. But today's the day.
That flimsy little ladder and dodgy window, and then another dodgy ladder you've got to climb up onto the roof. We're so wary. It's scary enough pushing musicians up there, but...
How do you get gear up there?
We basically...
A little tiny rope about that skinny.
We've got our system... We've got our system pretty down.
Yeah, we haven't smashed any gear.
Like one person down, one person on the roof, and you just pass it up. We've got our system down. And then on the way back, we sort of have three people, one at the top, one on the window ledge, and then one right down the bottom. Yeah, we just rough it. It's called a passion project. It's always good. Passion projects always have a certain amount of dodgy to them.
It's a seriously neat spot, to be honest. The reason why the sweat's pissing off me was coming back down that ladder was a lot fucking harder than going up.
Yeah, that's always
well,
the way.
you had a couple of drinks as well, mate. Yeah.
Well, that kind of soothed things a little bit.
Yeah.
The number of times I've climbed up a cliff face or something thinking, this is exciting. Pulling yourself up is very different from getting down. Right? When you have to look down at what you're trying to get down to, and you see that drop, holy shit. Mate, you said something... As you walked in, what was it? You said something about what you say yes and no to has changed this year, or what was it?
Oh, shit, yeah.
Yeah, we didn't go back to that. I'm interested in what you meant by that. Is that are we talking 2020 Corona apocalyptic decision making?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. There's 2020's fucked.
I would say that, as you said, that there was a universal agreement on the other side of whatever speaker people are on.
Yeah, it's. I actually met a guy in a bar last night that is an online CAD designer. Young guy. I met him through Graham at the Orchard.
What's CAD?
CAD. He makes 3D modelling for
houses
and buildings and shit like that.
Interior design and stuff, yeah.
And he's the first guy I've met this year that his business has taken off. He's tripled. So his name's Christy. I gave him a little bit of coaching a year ago on customer acquisition. Right. He's only a young guy. His business tripled this year. He's the only guy I've met whose business has grown dramatically.
You're like
the rest of us,
Tony Robbins of Bali.
Yeah, I doubt that. But the rest of us, especially the people in the live entertainment and music scene, are doing it tough. I mean, it really is apocalyptic.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's been brutal. I mean, that's where, I met you, I think the three of us met at the Orchard, right?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I remember chatting to you at the Orchard, and then, because you were aware of Phil because you're both Kiwis. Phil...
Oh, everybody in New Zealand knows Phil.
Yeah, and you were like, oh, is that Phil
I hang out with
Stootley?
people that know me.
I'm like, is that Phil Stootley? I'm like, what, are you his, brother-in-law or something?
Yeah. You're all related in New Zealand, mate.
Yeah,
all related.
I remember you saying,
country,
does this guy owe, do I owe him money or something? But I mean, the musician community in New Zealand is pretty small. I knew of you.
Yeah. Oh, right. Oh, okay.
I noticed it when...
I'm like a D-grade celebrity.
D-grade.
D-grade. It's on eating the trails.
You're definitely
if D was Z.
A for Bali, right?
D was Z.
D was Z.
Yeah.
But it is a small community because every time you talk about anyone doing anything in New Zealand, you're always like, oh yeah, I remember when his sister banged someone in my flatmate's room while she was partying. So there's always some.
We don't mention names.
I didn't mention a name. See, I can't even say someone in New Zealand without getting worried
because it's so small. It's
already.
We'll have to put an IP blocker on this podcast to make sure that no family at home gets to see this, right?
Yeah. About 20 people will be watching this game.
If the question is what's changed, the things that I thought were important aren't anymore. And the things that are important, that should have always been important, like connecting with family, being stuck overseas, not being able to go home for a funeral, a whole industry that has been decimated. So all my musician mates in New Zealand, Australia, and especially here in Bali, whose income just evaporated overnight for an indeterminate period of time, is fucking apocalyptic.
It's major, hey?
Yeah, it's major.
I mean, that was going to be my comment before, that we met at the Orchard, and that being such a prominent live music venue, you know, and you're so connected to the Orchard, you've worked with G, the owner, a lot, and you're good mates with him, and you've seen firsthand though how much that the whole industry has just been flipped.
Yeah, it's pretty brutal. I mean, there's not a lot of good news stories coming out of it, but I guess one of the really good news stories that came out of working with Graham at the Orchard was the Bali Musicians Appeal. So I'd known Graham for a few years, and was getting closer to connecting with him on doing something musically, like putting on festivals, which, you know, we can talk about later.
Yeah.
But the shit really did hit the fan here in a big way, and a lot of the local musicians here don't actually come from Bali. They might come from Java or Sumatra or somewhere else. So
yeah, it's a real mix.
Because the funds were so slow to flow down from the government to the grassroots, there was just a whole lot of hungry people. I mean, hungry. You know,
there aren't even any funds flowing down, are there?
There's no government subsidies. There's nothing. It's just you go back to your village and just...
There is some money that flows down to the banjar, but you have to be part of that banjar to be a recipient of that.
Yeah.
So we were at my place in Villacoro one day, and we were having a couple of beers, feeling sorry for ourselves, going, you know, because the orchard was closed under the moratorium at the time. Eventfinda in New Zealand, which is my company there, we'll talk about that later, but ticket sales just fell off a cliff. There's a graph where it just literally stops.
Would have been overnight, just absolute
almost, almost.
Wow.
And all of the community of musicians that we know were hungry. So I'm sure we're going to get to more uplifting stuff. But maybe it's good to kind of get this out of the way.
Sure.
Because people were fucking...
Well, it's a reality. It's it's been the year of it, right?
And people were hungry. So we had a couple of beers at my place because we were feeling sorry for ourselves, and realised who we were and what we still had: roof over the head and food in the fridge.
Exactly. Yeah.
And enough money that week for another beer and a cigarette, right? So we launched an appeal together, which I'm intensely proud of. And I know Graham
you guys did
as well.
An incredible thing. I mean, that was just a solid effort all round. You basically... So what, you know...
How many ton was it? How many tons of food? It was like 5 tons or 6?
Yeah, so we ended up raising... So we realised that because the venue's closed, we can't take money over the bar.
Yeah.
All the venues are closed, so local donations weren't gonna happen. So between us, we made an online donation system, and within a 2-month period, we raised 200 juta, which is $20,000.
Wow. That's a lot of food.
Yeah.
And what Graham and Rita did, which was extraordinary, because they had no income coming in through the pub, is they used that as the distribution centre. So they'd go out as the donations came in every day, and go to the local markets rather than the nationally owned or multinationally owned supermarket chains.
Yeah, sure.
To keep the money spinning through the community, right? And ended up distributing just under 10 tonne, and helped feed 800 families, around 2,000 people over the period of a couple of months. And some of the stories...
That's so impressive, man. 2,000 people. That's incredible.
Yeah, the funny thing is it never feels enough. It was actually... I found it soul-destroying work, because it's just never enough. And it was a really hard time to solicit people for donations overseas, because they're all facing the same thing, right?
Yeah,
so
sure.
I don't think I've ever spoken to anyone that works in a field where there is endless devastation, no matter how much good they're doing. I don't think I've ever spoken to anyone that says, "Oh yeah, it's great. I feel like I've solved the problem." It's never like that.
No, it's never like that.
You know,
It's
the people
ending,
that there's always the people that admire those people for what they're doing and see the positive outcome they're creating. But whenever you talk to the people that are doing it and on the ground, there's always still a sense of grief for what they haven't accomplished yet, because there's always an endless amount of people that need help, right?
It's actually, and it was traumatic. It was truly traumatic for for everybody. I mean, least of all because of us, because we still have more than other people, and that's how my folks brought me up, is that always help people less fortunate than yourself, and there's always people less fortunate than yourself, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, hats off to Graham from the Orchard for putting in that massive effort, on top of the effort that he made during the Lombok earthquakes.
Oh, the earthquake was mental,
But
because he had to drive for
hours
and hours and hours to get through
nearly
rubble.
ruined them. He put a lot of effort into
Yeah.
that, but
He
I mean,
definitely wears his heart on his sleeve. Here's cheers to Graham.
Yeah.
By the way,
Cheers,
Graham supplied this whiskey for us, so shout out to the Orchard.
The Orchard and
Shout out,
Seminyak.
Shout out to the Orchard for Orchard Bar and Restaurant, rock and music venue.
Thanks for the hangover,
Still
mate.
cracking along, supplying hangovers since the day I met him.
yeah, exactly.
Since the day I came into Bali, I got a massive hangover from
But the good news story out of this is that, I mean, Graham's been a huge supporter of the local music scene for 16 or 17 years, and local artists love playing at the Orchard.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to take any gig you got, but they love playing at the Orchard. And he introduced me to the creativity and the talent, and I've seen musical talent all over the world, but I've never seen a level of talent that is so both technically proficient, because some of these musicians are unbelievably
Phenomenal,
good technically,
man. Some of the talent here is
and also
Undiscovered.
creatively.
Undiscovered talent.
Undiscovered talent, exactly.
Yeah.
And it's when you see. I mean, I've had nights at the Orchard where I've just been sitting there looking at the stage, going, "Is this happening?" And it's those moments where you're just aware that, like you said, it's someone's skill set and the professional attitude they've taken towards practice to get to that level, but then the level that they've just let themselves go on stage with the other musicians, in a moment of absolute, the zone that everyone wants to achieve when they're a musician, where you just blank out, you don't even know what you're doing anymore, you're just so in the zone, you're just jamming your ass out. You see like 6 guys on stage at the same time in that zone.
Six guitarists
just,
with a drummer.
just going off.
And they're all famous.
Yeah.
You don't know who's going to turn up to the Orchard.
Oh, right, yeah. Well, whether they're like...
Well, not... It could be...
One might be famous and he's just come in after another gig, or he's off the back of a tour or something. Yeah. But then, the other guys might just literally have come in with a guitar in their hand and they've jumped up on stage.
Or no guitar and just grabbed it.
Yeah. And you've just... Yeah, I've seen guys... I remember a guy, Astika, when we used to do the jam nights. Yeah. I don't even know if it was jam nights back in the day, but I was running a music night there and playing every week, and then the guy that was bringing the sound system in, Argus, said to me, "Oh, my friend Astika's here. He really wants to get up and play." And sometimes you're a bit wary when people say that, because you've got a night organised of music and you've got the players organised, and it could be someone getting up and they're a bedroom player and they could just be terrible and scare off all the patrons, and then you're looked at like, dude, what are you doing? Like, get this guy off. But this, I knew the guy that supplied the sound system, and he obviously saw a lot of gigs, and I was like, "Are you sure he's good?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, you can really sing." And I was like, "Okay." So we got him up, and he was killer. And now, Astika, man, Astika. He's technically unbelievable. He plays all over the island, and
he's a vocal coach.
He's a vocal coach,
and an amazing
so he's
guitarist, and it's just like,
yeah, he's incredible. He blew everyone away. It was
practice a lot.
yeah. But sorry, I'm not.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
But there were good news stories that came out of that kind of appeal and fundraising, which in a roundabout way is leading into answering your question, which is, why am I making different decisions and what else is important? So, I mean, if I was at home in New Zealand, it's a completely different culture. There's a social welfare net. We had government assistance to help keep people employed rather than firing them all. Then they go on the dole and the taxpayers got to pay for them anyway. Whereas here, there was no infrastructure like that whatsoever. So the Bali musicians' appeal was kind of like, we got to dig in right now because there's people who are hungry right now. And seriously, I cannot express my gratitude to Graham and Rita enough, who went there every morning to pick up supplies, ante them up into individual boxes. I went around there a couple of times to help with the distribution. Yeah. And I had to go home. So I'd go home and work on the technical stuff and send out emails to get more donations. because I'd walk out the door and I'd just fucking burst into tears. It was just horrific. But the reason why we need to do things like that is because the musicians community everywhere is tight-knit, but really fragmented. So one of the things that doesn't exist in Bali, for example, is any sort of a musicians' union or a collective or insurance in case something happens to somebody and they pass away. So, you know, it was from those conversations, along with why we're building festivals the way that we're going to build them, is important to help try and bring some sense of cohesion. And the community's strong, but it's very fragmented.
Yeah, it's funny with like, I mean, I've lived here for 11 years now. I've been playing music for that long here, pretty much. Full time for like 9 years. But it really wasn't for me until G got the Orchard going, and I started returning or playing. Obviously, there I was playing there from the beginning. But like being in a place where I was seeing all these different musos come in, that all of a sudden I felt like there was a musicians community, and it wasn't.
Yeah, and that's it.
It wasn't because I started going around more and trying to find these musicians. Suddenly there was a place where they would show up, and I started to get to know all those musicians face to face.
Yep.
You sort of take that for granted, but I look back and I'm like, man, I wouldn't even feel like I was part of a musicians community unless I'd been at the Orchard for that.
And
that
that's all
period of
G's
time.
friends. That's who he hangs out with. That's who he drinks with.
It's great to see it.
And he also brings them along as well. I mean, one of the sad things is that one of the first bands that I saw there is now not viable because two of the band members and families that had to go back to their villages because they just can't afford to stay. They can't afford rice.
Yeah, right.
So the industry is at that level.
Yeah.
So, you know, doing whatever it is that we can to help pull it out of that. I mean, you can do so much tactically, but I got traumatised and fatigued trying to raise money. And I wasn't even doing the heavy lifting. That was Graham at the Orchard that was doing the heavy lifting. And the reason why I just keep going back to this now is because we cannot give enough credit to that man for just immediately digging in without another thought and putting a massive amount of effort in that outside of our community nobody knows about.
It's just selfless.
It's selfless, exactly,
totally, yeah.
But the third thing that I wanted to mention on top of the technical ability, just the sheer technical ability, and the creativity of the musicians that I've seen here, is that because they play selflessly, these guys and girls who are on stage make the other band members sound better. And, you know, you and I have got a couple of grey hairs. There's a lot of bands out there where somebody on stage wants to be the Michael Jordan and score the 50 points, right? As opposed to making the band sound better. So when these guys collaborate together and they form new bands or new partnerships, it's really fucking inspiring. It inspires the shit out of me.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons why I'm staying here.
It's another cool thing about small communities too, especially within the musician circles, is you get so many people just popping up in each other's bands, but it's great, you know.
Everyone
cool.
plays for everyone.
Yeah, I think we've had we've two drummers that I know of have both shown up with two different acts to play on the Bali Rooftop.
Well, we've got Micah. Yep. Micah plays for everybody. So he's been up there three times now?
Two or three times.
Two or three times on different bands.
It could have been maybe a third or fourth time with Rio, but Rio did the duo. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Everyone plays for everyone. Everyone supports everyone. You might be true to one band, but it's something cool about that, you know?
Yeah, it's great. Love it.
And so the other good news story that came out of that is one of the things that we're doing now is as you guys have found out, we're planning to put on a series of festivals during the course of a calendar year. So we're looking at a long-term venture. The Orchard presents the Seminyak Music Festival. And the difference between this and others is that it goes back to we're trying to reinvent a broken industry. So the festival and one-off concert business is broken. You know, you get a venue with a booking agent
Ticketing.
and a band's manager, a band, the promoter, and possibly sponsors aren't rowing in the same direction. And so it becomes a zero-sum game. They want to make as much as possible in the shortest time as possible with the lowest possible risk, and they keep fucking it up.
That's the general theme of putting on a show. Is that what you're saying? Up until now, like that's the usual. Yeah,
that's kind of how the industry is constructed.
It's geared.
So what we're doing is we're deconstructing that. We're going to reinvent this industry, focused on Asia Pac, focused on Asia, focused on Indonesia.
So is this
focused in the immediate term on Bali?
So the way what you're saying in terms of it's broken, is that something you've noticed in New Zealand? I mean, you've got such a heavy background in the New Zealand music industry and the way events operate and the way events are organised. Is it from that experience that you're like, I know exactly what screws people in the long run of trying to put on an event and make money out of it, and you're using all that?
Very much so. So in a way, it's unfinished business for me. So one of the things that you'll hear from entrepreneurs is that I just remember the failures of the things I've fucked up and the things I haven't done. And that's one of them is being able to reinvent this part of the supply chain between how events are marketed. So what we're going to do, for example, that is really, really different is push out, because this market is different. I mean, during the high season, every 8 days, there's another 256,000 new tourists here. So the catchment area isn't Auckland or Sydney or Melbourne or New York or London. You know, Bali's a really different environment because it's so popular, but it's absolutely not known as a live music destination.
Yeah. No, it's not at all, and it's such a hard flog, because how do you create events where, like, generally, you know, in my lack of experience of how to put on events, I'll assume that, like, putting on an event is you're advertising an event within an area that most people live anyway, and they plan ahead because they live in that area. They see the posters. That's coming up in 6 months. You know, Pearl Jam are touring. They're going to be at the entertainment centre. We live here, so we know we're going to be around. It slowly builds up to the point where they can't wait to go with their friends. And if you're advertising something to people that are only here for a week at a time, and often their journeys might be planned without too much notice.
Hotels, you know, they're in a hotel. So
it's such a transient crowd, like how do you put on a major show here and guarantee that people have the long-term planning capacity to be here and make sure it's filled up?
So G and I have been talking about this for the last probably 2 or 3 years, and you know, I don't mind talking about the strategy. People think that, you're sharing your ideas, you're giving them away. Well, that's bullshit. Everything is in the execution. One of the things that my co-founder at Eventfinda, James McGlynn, and I used to have this mantra is that the idea is 5%. You know, 95% is execution. Yeah. So one of the things that we're going to be doing is marketing the Seminyak Music Festival as a destination, as a thing, as an activity, and pushing the schedule out for maybe a year. So we're going to be marketing.
So getting people to plan their holiday around the event.
That's actually one of the ultimate games,
right?
One of the ultimate goals. So if we talk pie in the sky stuff and then deconstruct it back down to local now, if you talk pie in the sky stuff, maybe 2022, when the gates are open and the tourists are coming back, we can start off here now, for example, with a small field, a paddock, right? A paddock with a fucking stage on it.
Soccer field. Yeah.
Soccer field.
Yeah. There's one in Seminyak.
Yeah. But it won't be there.
Yeah. It's a little bit built up.
But thanks for asking.
I figured you had your eye on that one. There's a cafe that overlooks that I go to sometimes.
Yeah, shelter, right?
It's perfect. It's a perfect little place, but
that's
too many
not going to
villas.
happen. And in fact, I don't like the egress.
Right.
Of all things. But if we talk about, you know, like a couple of stages being 1,000 or 2,000 people locally, and then building that up over 2021, assuming the gods smile on us and the gates open back up again, the planes start flying again, we can then bring in sort of A and B level New Zealand artists, Australian artists, some artists from the UK, from the US, for a 1,000 to 2,000, make it a big day. Starts at 2, finishes at 10 or 11 or whatever. The longer term objective is to have that fund another field in Seminyak that is purpose built for 10 to 20,000 people. So that way we can start booking out Pearl Jam, Foo Fighters, Green Day, people we have connections with, because everybody who goes through New Zealand goes through Eventfinda sooner or later, right? So I don't have to know
and I mean,
people.
That's the thing. There's these, Bali's an incredible short Bali holiday stopover on the way to these other countries that are on the tour map anyway.
Exactly.
You've got Sydney and Auckland and Singapore and Jakarta, and you got these places that are literally, these massive bands, Metallica and whoever, are bouncing around. Bali's right here, it's just begging for it.
It's not a fucking hard sell to the bands, because to say, do you want to play in Jakarta? Not really.
Unless you're international.
I mean, as far as the concert goes and the people goes, they want to do it. But as far as the holiday goes...
Yeah, but do you want me to show you a good time in Bali for 5 days and you can play a gig? Fucking not a hard sell, bro.
Exactly, yeah.
So the idea that if we push out that calendar that everybody can see, that's publicised, you'll end up with maybe every 6 weeks, whether it's a Foo Fighters or a Green Day, or insert band here. I'm just speaking generals, not specifics. But if that's in like July, August, September, you're going to get a bunch of people from Melbourne, a bunch of blokes and guys and girls who are going to go, we're going to go on a holiday in Bali.
And you got cheap flights.
And I got the data on that when they make their decisions and how far ahead they make their decisions. The objective is to them go, one of them will go, we got to go to the Seminyak Music Festival because X is playing. Somebody else doesn't want to go to that one, but next month there's something else. And to be perfectly honest, and without any disrespect to the artists, if you had a Green Day on one month and a Foo Fighters on the next, and you wanted to go to one but couldn't, but you were here for the next one, you'd actually go, because it's that level of act. And so being able to forward market that lowers the risk dramatically, because our theory, our philosophy is our concerts are always going to sell out.
What happens for DJs here? You got international DJs. This is a destination, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've had a lot of friends.
People fly
I've had
here.
a lot of
and
friends
we're going to be talking about that because,
a lot of friends have contacted me and saying, I want to come to Bali around this time. Are there any major events or major DJs playing or bands or whatever? But it's more often than not at this. Bali's more set up for DJs, right? So it's more often. I'm usually more aware of a big DJ that's going to be playing here, even though I'm not a big DJ guy. I'm obviously way more into band music, but I rarely am aware of a great band that's going to be performing in Bali.
Exactly,
So to be able to, mate,
when all of these tourists go to Sky Garden to see Steve Aoki, if they've got another top 10 the following week, they're still going. They're not making the decision not to go because they missed it last week.
Just keep going, tuning them out. Yeah,
it's about providing content. It's about understanding what people want and giving it to them. It really is.
I mean, definitely, why haven't... I guess the questions are, why haven't people done this before, and what have they gotten wrong? Like, a lot of the things that I've heard in the past... I mean, I've heard a number of people over my years here try and bring big acts in. The thing that I hear that's different with what you're saying is they haven't come from an angle of understanding how to market it, make the awareness of it.
It's the culture as well.
Book it long in advance. What I've seen over the years is people really just focused on how to get the band here, and then if the band's here, then once they're already here, people will show up. That's sort of, if you build
Field
that,
of Dreams, put it
Field
on.
of Dreams. That's what people have gone for. They've just gone full Kevin Costner on it. But
Kevin Costner.
But a lot of the big difficulties they've faced that I've seen is that in the end they've gone, it's just too much of a headache with with all the regulations here that suddenly, inverted commas pop up as far as fines that suddenly appear out of nowhere for getting the band's gear from the airport in, and things like that can often sort of put a massive dampener on trying to pull
So if you think
off.
about the difference being, it's not about the act that you're booking, it's about the fact that you're doing one every 6 weeks, which means that there's going to be content of that level, content being an industry term for what bands you're booking. There's going to be content here, and hopefully our expertise lies in how to get awareness to those customers long before they get here. There's another conversation about that.
But that's an SEO sort of thing that you're good at, right? And
So
which you're the master of.
You're the master.
You've got a lot of. You got all the.
You're like Neo.
You got all the coins in your pocket.
No, I got fucking no coins in my pocket.
Well, the digital coins, maybe the digital knowledge coins.
And we're not talking about crypto.
And we're not talking about.
We're talking about coding.
Coins.
Silicon Valley.
There's unfinished business that I have skills on and no money to do it with. So
it's interesting though, like just on the point
you
of
got a computer, and
just on that point of like people, like I like what you're saying there. People are aware that every 6 weeks there is something on, regardless, and they know it's going to be top quality. The thing the thing that reminds me of is being here for 11 years. I've noticed that one thing that people always rely on is generally the yearly event, right?
So Kudeta's white party, right? Which actually went down over the last few years. I mean, I went to a couple, and the Love Generation party was spectacular.
Yeah, that's the one where
Athron sung there. He was Lennon.
Were you there? Because I said that.
I was. Let's talk about that later. So that was
less about Athron, more about Michael.
So that was
fair enough.
No, yeah. So that was a psychedelic thing, and I remember walking in.
Oh yeah.
So it was the psychedelic.
I played John Lennon.
So,
Jesus.
dude, that was the psychedelic thing, right? So I walked in there, and they had a 56 Ford Holden painted in flowers hanging from the ceiling as a chandelier when you walked in.
It was awesome. That was
and
a
it was
great party, man. It was. Yeah.
And so that has a nation and audience, and it's once a year. And for whatever reason, but the production values went down over the last few years, and they just became less spectacular, and there became more of them. So there was too many people doing the same thing, chasing the same dollar on the same fucking month from the same people.
Well, also just the simple fact that the number of venues and beach clubs in Bali has just gone exponentially out of control. You know, Kudeta used to be the one. It was the big beach club. You know, it was the one.
It was that in Potato Head.
Yeah. So like, and you know, and before Potato Head, man, it was just.
And they had a different vibe. They had a different audience. But when everybody goes to the lowest common denominator, and when there's a race onto the bottom, get out of the way. When everybody's swimming this way, go the other way.
Yeah,
which is literally why,
that's what you're
doing,
when we were talking on the rooftop before, one of the changes that I've made in my thinking is that there's got to be two focus. One on making strategic businesses that are going to turn serious coin and be sustainable and scalable. And the reason why you've got to turn coin is you can't keep on putting on festivals that run at a loss.
Yeah.
So if it's not profitable, it's not a great business. They must be investor worthy.
Yeah.
If they're not investor worthy, they're not worth doing. However, on the other side, you've got to flip the script a bit and start thinking tactically, how the fuck do I make money now in order to wait this shit out until we get there when the planes come back? Because there's polls out now that are saying that, you know, what place do you want to go to when all the shit is over? And Bali is like a country mile ahead of everywhere else.
Yeah. For Aussies that have been locked in, they're just going.
Oh, there's so many Aussies that come here every year.
Yeah,
like
and they're screaming
maybe twice, maybe 3 times a year. It's just their escape.
Well, Kuta alone, I mean, that's a big bulk of the Australian market, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so to go back to your first question, though, one of the reasons why Graham and I have focused on planning these festivals now, so when they do come back, or when we get the date to do something locally, we can pull the trigger straight away. We're just waiting for a date.
Yeah.
We're making the right connections. We're working with the local authorities to make sure that we're going to do it right. When we're allowed to do it, dot the I's and cross the T's, because it has to be sustainable and scalable. So just to go back to the Bali Musicians Appeal, that's the best thing that we can help the local music community, is by building a fucking stage where they need to be. They need to play on. They need to be playing in front of 1,000, 2,000 people.
Yeah. So is the concept that you've got? Okay, what are we talking? Are we talking every 6 weeks there's a concert with a major international act, and what? It's a festivals type day where you have a lot of local acts playing
exactly
leading up to that main act. Or?
So it's you could almost flip the script on it and say the objective is to promote the undercard. So to get the bands that we all know and love, and the artists that we all know personally, to get them on a big stage, a couple of minutes before Dave Grohl starts doing his thing, would be fucking amazing for them.
Yeah,
it would give them the exposure that they don't have.
It's a similar, it's when we first started getting bands on the rooftop here. We were always, the idea was, surely if we can create a platform where loads of bands are all on the same platform and people are coming, they're not going searching for that band because they're not familiar with that band yet, but they're going searching for the platform because they know that on that platform there will be a certain amount of skill and talent that is just regular and reliable. And so therefore, just by going to the platform, they know they're going to get a good reward with great music, and therefore all the bands that appear on it are going to benefit because they're going to get seen and pushed up. And then you get someone like, a touring act like Tikatane or the Black Seeds or whatever who've played on the rooftop, and suddenly you've got all these people viewing that, and then the next video they see is a local act that hasn't had a chance to be seen like that before, and suddenly their talent's pushed up.
Seriously, huge respect for the Bali Rooftop. Thank you very much for the invite. Haven't seen a live one yet, he says, hinting with heavy irony.
Yes, we got a hammering. We got a hammering.
Yeah,
on the rooftop.
It's pretty much the reason why I'm here doing this. You know that, don't you? I'm just angling for free tickets to your next gig.
You only get there's only 3 or 4 tickets.
As well, right?
All right, next month. I'm away for a month, and then I'm going to come back and we'll do a few more, and we'll get you up for one of the...
Yeah.
We'll book a few in, and then you can pick your
Okay, that was a good interview. Thanks very much.
You got your ticket on your way. Go on.
He's lubed us up. He's taken the lube train out of here.
You want to hear a funny anecdote? You were talking about having the Black Seeds up here. I went to see them at the Lawn. It was like, I think was it 2 years ago?
Yeah, that was when they played.
I turned up there. Yeah. It was after they played up here on the rooftop, and you and G were up there, and I just shimmied in between the pot plants, and you guys right on the corner there, and
Side stage.
That was
upstairs.
That was
on the balcony.
a friend of ours, Heath, who I know from promoting music and doing stuff in New Zealand.
Well, Heath brought them over, yeah.
Yeah, and he was kind enough to invite us along. And the reason why that was so special to me is because way back in the day when I started Eventfinda, or we started Eventfinda, there's Eventfinda's if nothing else, is a fantastic team of people who made something great and changed the entertainment industry in New Zealand irrevocably.
Yeah, massive.
And when we first made a ticketing system, the very first tickets that we sold, a guy called Craig, who was his manager, who I'm forever grateful for, called him one day and said, "We're going to roll out a self-service ticketing system. Would you be in?" And he said, "Fuck yeah, promoting local, as opposed to going through Ticketmaster or Ticketek. We'll be in." So the very first gig that we're going to put on for a test of the ticketing system was supposed to be something small and out of the way and tiny, so as we could test it, was the national tour by the Black Seeds.
Oh wow! Okay, so that's a good risk. First tester.
That's a pretty good risk though, because they're a big band in New Zealand.
Yeah.
So,
Well, this is going back in the day, but.
Early 2000s.
I was talking Barnaby and a couple of the guys upstairs, and
the guys in the band after the show.
Told them that story, and they were like, "Fucking wow, we kind of remember that."
Right.
You know, and I pulled out the first ticket that I ever sold. I kept a copy of it in my wallet for years.
It was in your the first ticket you ever saw was in your wallet at the Black Seeds gig.
Did you
and
buy
they
it?
were the first band that you ever promoted and pushed. That's
Did you
awesome.
buy it yourself or?
No.
Yeah, you knew someone that knew
I
someone.
didn't. I didn't buy it. The ticketing system didn't go down. We did do some test runs.
Yeah, okay.
But I didn't actually buy that one. It wasn't my name on it. It was actually somebody else's name, but I kept it.
That's amazing.
That's
I love that.
I kept it so.
I love it. It's like the first dollar someone makes, when they're on the stock market or whatever, and they have it on their wall.
Wow.
Actually, I learned that from my dad because he's a cray fisherman. And
Hard work, man.
He's still got
That's hard work.
crayfish on his wall.
I've done a little bit of that with my stepdad, and when you're pulling that shit up, keep going. It's so deep.
a man who goes to sea by
That's a hard work.
himself for 40 years. Right, that's hard yakka. That's the
proper
measure of
hard
a man
yakka.
to me.
Yeah.
So,
Everyone I know that. Anyway, yeah.
Dad, if you ever get to see this,
He's watching it
big
now, mate.
respect, brother. Big respect.
He will. Yes,
But
yes.
one of the things that he did is he told me a story when I was thinking about starting my first business, and I rang him up and asked him for advice. And he was working on the forestry. That's what he told me when he was younger. I think he was 19 or something like that. He was a foreman on the forestry, and they're planting pine trees, on the hills, the Coromandel.
Arborist, yeah.
Fucking, I wouldn't call it arborist. It was digging fucking holes and planting trees.
So he wasn't shaving. He was just.
No, they're literally planting pine trees.
Jesus.
And he looked out at sea and he saw a fishing boat going out to the islands. And he went, fuck this, I'm doing that. So he walked off the hill and borrowed some money off his old man and went and bought a boat. That we actually
bought a boat.
we
He didn't go and
found.
get ask someone to work on a boat. He just
bought a boat.
He went
Bought a boat.
straight for the jugular.
Talk about being an entrepreneur, right? You have a grand vision that you execute with scant regard to resources or knowledge.
Wow.
So I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to do
Is
it.
that the definition of an entrepreneur?
It's mine. A lot of people disagree.
Right.
And one of the things that he did is the very first dollar note back in the day, the very first dollar that they handed out when he sold his first catch of fish was in a frame on the bedroom wall outside my bedroom window.
Nice.
On the hallway wall. So the idea of keeping like a ticket
Yeah.
just kind of comes from that,
I
right?
got my first APRA check. They never cashed it. It was like $1.95.
Yeah, I got my first royalty check from the first album I did with my band when I was 20, and it was a radio royalties check from radio players in Colombia. So I remember
oh, that's even better.
Yeah, I remember which was so random because, mate, we literally
Colombia.
we pressed 100 CDs and we never even followed through with another press, like with the band broke up, whatever. And then, 6 months later or a year later, I get this check from APRA, I think it is, for radio players in Colombia. And I was
Did you
like,
roll it up?
Well, I was like, one day, that was literally my comment. Like, I'm keeping this because one day I'm gonna snort through this in Colombia. Which
Did you vacuum it first, or
I had
can't wash
no
it.
idea where it ended up, unfortunately. And I finally went to Colombia in December last year, so I missed my chance. But anyway,
back to your first.
Yeah, that first one. I mean, you just I don't know why.
The first ticket.
You just don't forget it.
Yeah, the boys must have been pretty impressed by that. The Black
was
Sea
it,
boys.
was it a successful tour? Was it like?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was.
Yeah.
So
It's hard to tell because when you take something like Eventfinda, where the biggest systemic problem in the industry was that people didn't know what's on. It's as simple as that. So when I moved back to New Zealand in 2004 or 2005, and I travelled the country visiting my friends and family and looking for things to go to, I collected 168 bookmarks of websites that had what's on.
Wow.
This is before you started Eventfinda?
Yeah.
Right, so this was like the gateway to you saying to yourself, something's wrong here, something's missing.
Yeah, and then I talked to some people who owned venues and they had lock-ins with ticketing companies, and the artists were getting paid $9 out of a $26 ticket, and shit was just wrong. So one of the first things that we did, I missed a gig that I was at the beach in Whangapaia in Coromandel, and I was reading the paper, and I found out about a gig that was the day before. It was Jimmy Barnes. And I missed it because I didn't know it was on.
Well,
and I was bitching about it to my girlfriend at the time.
Wow. Early days as well, He was a bit younger.
We'll leave that one. But and she said, just leave me alone. I want to read my book. I'm sick of you talking about it. Go and fix it. So I walked up and down the beach and went, okay, fucking will then. So I mapped it out for 3 months, thought it through, and then spent 3 months making the original platform.
So wait, so the idea in your head, the problem that you wanted to fix was...
My girlfriend was pissed off.
Yeah, right. You wanted to get sex again. No, basically you...
No.
No? So basically you noticed that, one, there wasn't a collective agency or avenue or platform to buy tickets or be aware enough that an event was on. So that,
yeah, so the difference that we made with my co-founder James McGlynn when we launched it was that we made a self-service platform where everybody could list their event. So the problem with the Ticketmaster website, if you're into event discovery, is that they only advertise events that they sell tickets to. So we allowed everybody to list their event, which gained us consumer audience.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And when we captured the consumer audience, then we could do things like add self-service ticketing. Would you like to sell your own tickets with that? And it basically grew from there. I mean, it grew to...
So it was literally the consumers themselves, or the people or the venues and the people putting on events that just them on their own just started adding to it, which of course drew the crowd to find out what was going on, and then you just watched it just blow up from there. Is that how it worked?
No.
Okay, so how did it go from?
So that's what the fairy story that I often tell. That's the same fairy story that I tell, but that's a fairy story.
Okay.
The way that it happened was hard graft. So I used to sit down there on a Friday night and email bands.
Some water there for you, mate.
Yeah, thanks, man. Don't need that. Just need more vodka tonic.
I was just checking.
I would email artists and bands by finding them on other people's websites and saying, hey, we've got this website called Eventfinda. You can list your event for free and get access to an audience that you didn't have before. And there's one particular band that I was talking to this guy and he said, no. And I asked him why, and he said, because that's not our audience. We know our audience. We've got our following. We know our marketing. We know what we're doing. And that's when I realised that, when I first realised that I had a disconnect, that I didn't understand the industry deep enough. So let's fast forward a few years.
What year was that?
So that was, fuck me, 2006. I launched it January 21st, 2006. It's my birthday.
Wow.
No, January 23rd, actually.
Okay, so you'd already launched at this point, and then this was going into the guts of making it.
It took off, but what I realised was for the network effect to take place, we had to get everybody listing their events, not just music.
Yeah.
And so
not just music. Any event whatsoever. Like plays, musicals, theatre,
so part
all
of
of
the problem was that if you wanted to go to something on the weekend, you could look up music events, but maybe there was a school fete on, or a carnival, or a fucking circus, or a fair, or what the fuck ever, right?
Oh, I didn't realise all of that stuff was listed.
Everything, yeah.
Everything.
Right.
Yeah. So that was like the big challenge, right? How do you get that?
It's basically the gig guide for the whole country.
Yeah.
Like the gig guide. Yeah.
And there were gig guides, and they were doing pretty well, but they were just gig guides.
And they were quite localised?
But they were very niche, right? Very niche sort of...
Wellington gigs.
Yeah. Wellington was great with that. They had that little fold-out little thing, and it was great.
Yeah, there's always a local gig guide, isn't there?
Yeah,
but
Wellington's
there's
always
very rarely...
But it's very regionalised.
And I guess it was... Yeah, and I guess back then, like, it was only at the tipping point of the internet blowing up, so...
Think about this. It was before mobile phones.
Yeah.
So, and there's an interesting story that follows on from that. But think about the time that it was before mobile phones. But clearly it was moving away from local media and printing and newspapers to digital. You know, the
So it was
people
right on the cusp, really. You were going into a digital platform that
So
allowed people to...
You went straight into a website, is that right?
Yeah,
So
and you were doing it
yeah.
right when just as
Yeah.
all of the social media and people were being pulled into the digital platforms, just as they were sort of falling into it, I guess.
Yeah,
Just on the tipping point.
You always need luck.
Yeah.
Luck's a-
timing.
And
luck's a-
timing. And
luck-
timing.
Luck and timing. And you
Yeah.
never know whether timing's good or bad. Some of the massive entrepreneurial failures that I've had, even with Eventfinda, is because I got the timing massively wrong. But the thing is, you don't know, right? So think about the Seminyak Music Festival now. We're either going to get the timing really right. The Orchard presents the Seminyak Music Festival as a sustainable, ongoing brand for years in perpetuity, right? Is doing all of that planning now incredibly prescient, or am I an idiot? It's going to be one of those two things, right?
I don't
Yeah,
think you're an idiot. You're trying, and that's the main thing. You know, and I think it will
Yeah, I
happen.
get told a lot that I'm trying to be an idiot too, so...
It's interesting though, like what I've really, you know, there's a lot to be said for like noticing that something is missing, knowing the field that it's missing in, seeing the potential for it, but also following it because it just gets you going. It excites you. It pulls you in. It gets you up in the morning and it motivates you. And often if you say to yourself, "Oh, I might fail, so I won't follow it," well, then nothing in that whole world will present itself to you because you've just blocked yourself off from all of it. But if you follow it along the way,
and fail.
Yeah, let's say that like along the way you realise the timing isn't perfect and you realise the timing doesn't have the same potential that you thought. Still on that journey to building it, you're probably going to have new opportunities come up or speak to someone within that industry where you go, oh my God, there's that now.
Totally. Success does not move in a straight line.
Yeah, it really doesn't.
Sometimes it's about...
Well, it's not linear.
Sometimes it's doing what the old man did, is just pushing the boat out and then learning how to fish.
Yeah.
I mean, that's some freaky shit, right?
Yeah.
And most successful people have done that. You know, they've just been, I didn't know what I was doing. I was just learning as I went.
Along with the massive pile of failures as well.
Oh, yeah,
but
there's always the stories.
that's how you learn.
One of the things that I like to show young entrepreneurs is that Apple ad, here's to the crazy people. Because it's the crazy people...
I haven't seen that ad. What's that?
Who think they can change the world that actually end up doing so. So, you know, there's clearly an element of being mentally unbalanced and being an entrepreneur in any field.
Yeah.
Well, people don't, Steve Jobs said, like, people don't know what they want. Well, the masses don't know what they want until they get it.
So there's two fields of thought on that one.
Yeah.
And like in my professional world, I'm one of the only ones who have that ethos. So we talked about data on the rooftop before. Data can point the way, and it can narrow, it can help sharpen your thinking. But on some level, you're trying to bring a vision into reality that doesn't exist yet, and people can't tell you what it is because they don't know. Now, that's not always the case. Great businesses come from knowing what people know, doing tests or user experience studies or whatever. What I've accepted this year, during this horrific fucking year, is that I'm not one of those people. I'm one of, you know, high risk, but try and lower that risk as much as possible, trying to decrease the complexity
With data.
Yeah. To make something as likely as possible while still pushing the boat out by owning the venue, creating the venue, owning the customer journey, directly booking, like with the Orchard Presents, the acts that are going to play. And so all the players are aligned, rowing in the same boat in the same direction, as opposed to all trying to take $1 off each other.
Yeah,
So as opposed to being a
Bali's like
zero-sum
that,
game where if I'm the promoter and you're the venue, every extra dollar that I make is a dollar that you don't. We're at war with each other trying to put on the show. So if you can consolidate that supply chain, but what I'm all about is capturing customers. So if I can find out that there are customers here who want live music, which I had through another website that I've made, then that points the direction that you need to go in. But there still needs to be an element of batshit crazy going.
Yeah.
Okay,
I love that.
what's the bigger vision of that?
Batshit
What's the
crazy.
extrapolation of that going forward?
Yeah.
If it works in Bali, can it work in the rest of Asia?
Yeah.
If the formula for doing this works here, can it work in other places that have the same kind of characteristics that Bali has, as opposed to being a static population like Jakarta or Auckland or London? I'm sweating just thinking about it. Because the idea of fucking this up, right, is strong.
But this is the thing. I really.
You know what drives the two kinds of entrepreneurs? You know what drives people like me? Fear of failure.
Well,
petrified.
There's a few
and do
things.
It anyway.
There's a few things that I see drive you, which is why I admire what you do. Like, I think you've got a really.
Thank you.
I do. I think you've got an incredible, balance of ingredients to be sitting where you are talking about what you're wanting to do here. Like, you've got this bizarre mix of incredible business savvy and success in New Zealand.
There's someone to dispute that, but sure, let's go with that.
Mate, any successful businessman is going to have people that dispute it. But I mean, your journey with Eventfinda is quite remarkable. Let's be honest. Many people have tried to put together platforms or a lot of people are motivated by the idea of the ultimate success of that idea. That's the motivation.
Well, Steve Jobs was hated by everyone. And everyone's got an iPhone.
Let me just make it clear that wasn't my journey. The success in that was getting the right people in the right place at the right time. Sometimes the right people at the wrong time, because you can't do it yourself. You can't do it yourself. No man is an island. So if anything, from an internal view, if Eventfinda is seen as some success, it's certainly not mine. It's the people that we got in order to be able to execute and scale a business. And I cannot stress that enough.
Yeah, but the point I was about to make is that
spotting talent is a massive thing.
Yeah, the point I was about to make is that I see a lot of people come up with ideas because they want to make a lot of money and they want their idea to be successful. So then they backtrack the idea.
They get married to that.
Yeah, they get married to the idea of success, and they backtrack from the success to try and get back to a point where do we start to get to that success point? But every time I've hung out with you and I've seen you talking about you've always been invigorated with this concept of I need my next thing. I've moved on from Eventfinda in the sense that I need a new project that ignites my passion. And the thing that I've noticed every time you're talking about this stuff is that you don't ever come across, and you've literally said it, as motivated by the idea of making millions or whatever. You're looking for that thing that truly ignites your passion, and not only ignites your inner passion, but gets the reward of other people being ignited by passion.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a really strong point in any business, and any business that becomes your lifestyle. I think a lot of people fail in the fact that they get so caught up in the idea of the end result that the journey's shit for them in the end. And even when they get to the end and
so
they
that's
make
changed for me.
Right. That's changed in that. Was that an initial issue for you, or have you learnt that over the years? Or?
Yeah, I did. I just got older.
But I know a lot of
calmed down.
I got a lot of grey hairs.
You just calmed down and chilled out.
I got grey chest hairs. I don't know where the fuck
we
they
talked about that
came from.
earlier. You just need to shave those off, and we'll sort that out.
Well,
I got a shaver upstairs. We'll sort that out.
I have actually.
What, you shaved? Yeah, you did a bit of a chest shave. You've gone for a chest shave.
Yeah. So there's 3 rules that I like to live by in my life.
Bring it on. Are we talking? This will be interesting.
Shaving is one.
This is embarrassing.
What's
it really is.
We love an embarrassing podcast submission.
Never date an artist.
Right. I would back that up.
Never manage a band.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I'll back that up.
Because they're always going to break you out.
Yeah.
Be nice to your mum.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah,
and which
100%.
rules have you broken that have led to you shaving your chest?
Can we just do a U-turn back there?
And the worst thing about that is that I've had a hairy chest for a long time, and now I've got fucking chafed nipples, and it's killing me.
What? So you've only just
It's
recently
just-
decided
You just
to shave
worked
your
that
chest?
out. You've
When
just
did you-
mate, shave
Have
it.
we
I've
talk-
got a shaver
are you-
upstairs. Let's
Have you
shave
just
you.
broken the cherry on chest shaving? What's going on?
Pretty much, yeah.
What brought that on?
Yeah, it was a good night.
It's got to be woman related.
Oh, completely.
I mean, okay, so
Completely.
your current the girl
Yeah,
you're seeing?
so let's not, but let's.
Hey guys, calm down.
Okay.
So let's not. But
Pivot
let's
away
just
from that.
assume
No, fuck putting it away.
that people write poetry, build buildings, sing songs because they're trying to impress a chick.
Right. You thought you'd bring it back down to a basic Neanderthal shaving of hair
So
level.
shaving
That
is
came
your
across
guitar.
really bad, I realised.
That's
I
your
just
guitar.
realised I just used the word chick, which is quite misogynist in this day
Oh,
and
no,
age.
it's not.
So I
Only
was-
to Americans.
I was just trying to...
In Australia, chick means woman. It's flat out, man. I've been with some amazing chicks, and that's not.
So it seemed like
an
a good
insult.
idea at the time, but every decision has unintended consequences, and chafed nipples is now one of them.
Did she run it over? She's going,
Did she shave your chest?
Yeah,
or?
let's not, shall we? Can we move it back to the business
Oh, mate,
entrepreneur?
but are we
side,
talking
or-
blood? Because, like, I mean, I'm a shaver.
I've
Don't
been
get me
there,
wrong.
and I've been there.
I've cut
So
the
he's-
shit out of my balls before, dude. Don't you remember that? Like, I remember the first time I shaved my balls, and I went straight for the what's it called? The clippers.
Oh, fuck,
I
this
had no idea.
yeah,
what was going on.
you got to put the
This is gonna
safety
be
guard
wrong.
on. You got to put the safety guard on.
I need to
Yeah,
I
I've
didn't
done
even
that.
realise
Like,
clippers grab skin the way they
yeah,
grab
no,
it until I went
it's like
for
this, mate.
I'm going
a
to
ball
need
shave.
I'm going to need a smoke for this
It's
one.
like this.
Oh, dude.
So
I
you're going to
looked-
put the safety clippers on.
It
Trust
was
me.
a, it was a
Yeah, they
butcher's
don't-
slab,
they don't work
mate.
either.
I
So
needed to
here's-
wear a nappy for about a week. It was disgusting. It's just a walking pile of mess.
I can't believe you got me to do this.
Come on, Michael, we can do this.
So here's the funny thing: when it comes to when it comes to, let's just assume it's advice for manscaping.
All right, let's hear that.
Always use the cream. And the reason why I say that is I'm a
I wish I'd had this podcast.
I'm a haemophiliac.
before
So
mine.
if I cut myself, I don't
You don't
stop
have
bleeding.
Are you
Haemophiliac?
really a haemophiliac?
Yeah. So
my God.
if I bump myself on the corner of that table, that's a bruise for
You're
a
going to
month.
bleed to death.
Wow.
Or
So let's
bruise.
just So
Wow.
let's just picture your scenario for a second.
Holy shit!
And getting
would have
that
been-
wrong.
Yeah, no,
Ah.
that would be.
Actually,
you climbed up on the
sorry, guys,
rooftop.
Don't picture that. That's the wrong
They've already
image.
pictured it. I gave everyone a nice solid.
That's the wrong
View
image.
to my wrongness.
Use the cream because it's lowering the risk.
But what sort of cream are we talking? Vaseline or what?
I'm not
KY.
having this fucking conversation with you.
Give me a lowdown on the cream.
I'm not having this conversation with
Come
you.
on, mate.
You said if we were going to have this
Come on, Michael,
conversation,
you've only
we'd
had
use
one
it as a
interview.
segue into something else.
Mate, at least give me some
and then
advice.
you've just gone full fucking Wolverine on it.
Have another vodka and
I
tell
can't
us some
help
more.
myself.
Oh,
I'm still baffled by the ball shave.
so the reason for the cream is there's no blood. It's all about timing. So it says on the tin 10 minutes, but trust me, it's
10
5
minutes?
minutes and 30 seconds, right? And then scrub it
Oh,
off.
you're going for the- what do you call that?
He's talking specific cream.
No,
and I
you're talking
wanna
about
know
that
the
cream.
brand.
That what do you call it? That
depilatory cream.
yeah, it just burns. Yeah, oh, dude, man, don't go
It
there.
burns?
That's dangerous. Yeah. You put the cream on, and it just burns it. But if you leave it for too long,
And then you got to get
It
the
just
you got to get it
burned.
taken off real quick.
Are you
really quick.
serious?
Yeah,
Dude,
I've never
that's a
done
risk
it.
factor.
But
No,
dude,
it's a lower risk factor than taking a
Nah.
sharp fucking instrument to the balls of a haemophilia.
But there's
for fuck's
got to
sake.
be a
I don't
midway.
agree with
There's
you on
got to be
that.
a halfway
No.
risk factor.
I got this down.
Surely there's a
yeah,
halfway
you got to be
risk
the
factor.
shower's got to be
This
running.
is a whole
for that.
separate podcast.
The shower's got to be running for that.
Oh my
that
god!
cream.
I'm intrigued.
There's got to be
Run.
preparation, and you have to be focused.
How-
and
it
what-
burns
not
the
be,
hairs.
how
It's
can
a-
there not be a cream that doesn't burn but stops?
Okay, I'm just going to
It's
give
a
you
cream that burns
one
the
other
hairs.
help tip, then we're going to move on, right? When you're doing it, when the timer goes off, you have to be very
You've got to
aware.
have the egg timer on.
and that
Run to
at
the
whatever
shower.
other activity is taking place at the time, you cannot lose your focus on the fact that when that timer goes off, you need to get in the shower and get the heavy water happening pretty
You'd
quick.
you'd want to be doing the morning of, not like the afternoon of the activity.
Let's go with that.
Yeah. I wouldn't want to be risking a 1 hour window before activity time.
Or having somebody help you with it, for example.
Yeah.
Okay, so the road to hell is paved with good intentions. We're all clear on that, right?
I mean, I've got a mate who's got a fetish
Can't fucking believe you got me to talk about
We're
this.
talking about fetishes.
shaving
now.
other women. Like
That's normal, though.
Yeah, it's
isn't
his
it?
fetish. Like he
That's normal.
wants the woman to not be shaven so that he gets the pleasure of doing the shaving.
I'm not having this conversation, Athron.
I would like to reverse.
I feel very uncomfortable now.
I'd like to reverse that fetish.
Carry on, Athron. Can you carry on so Michael feels uncomfortable
Yeah,
and I
mate,
can watch?
I'm very comfortable. I'm very comfortable with my uncomfortabilities.
Yeah. Hey, carry on. Well, you just found your dad, so...
Oh, fuck me.
Oh,
Okay.
I can flip the script on that if you want.
No, that's another whole podcast. Let's avoid that one. That's
Sorry, I just I'll let
So
the cat
we're
out of the
both
bag.
good now?
I mean, I don't mind talking about it, but it's not. All right.
Another podcast?
All right. We've gone through the gateway of.
And you know what? That is actually another podcast because I have empathy for that.
Yeah, well, what?
Let's not.
Okay. All right.
Okay,
Alright.
pitch me another subject and let me be a politician.
All right. Well, let's roll off. I mean, let's. We're probably coming to the end of the podcast anyway, but let's not.
I was just getting warmed up.
Let's not end the podcast on ball tearing.
No.
But I'm really still quite intrigued with the whole process of the Eventfinda thing. One thing I'd love to know is how long was it before initiating and launching that you saw the tipping point and you kind of had that excited moment in the office with the crew going, holy shit, guys, like we are, this is becoming the go-to.
So the first exciting moment was 2 days later when it got traction. Within
2 days later?
Within a week.
Oh, you had to wait 48 hours.
Within a week, we had 5,000 visitors, and I knew something was up.
That's incredible.
Like it resonated. But I got to tell you, it took years and years of hard work and building a team, massive adversity. There was a government website that opened up 9 months after we launched, and we had one of the first software as a service companies. So we would, you could list one event for free, but for $4.95 a month, you could list 3. And for $10.95 a month or $9.95 a month, you could list like 10. And then we had a $50 a month, if you're a promoter or publicist, that you could list a lot. 9 months after we launched, the government opened a website that did pretty much the same thing for free. So we had to battle that for a couple of years, which destroyed the investment environment for that.
Was that literally a carbon copy? Like, was that a piss take? Or?
It was pretty much, actually. But it ended up being a good thing because over a couple of years, we worked with them and ended up having a partnership with the Ministry of Culture and Heritage. It's history now, but it was very much a lesson in learning how to adapt to the environment, survive under adverse conditions, and make people partners that are normally enemies.
Nice.
So we did the same thing with Yahoo. Our biggest competing site up until that point was Yahoo. Upcoming.com.
That must be early 2000s, right?
Upcoming.org or something like that.
Fuck, Yahoo.
That was huge. So we made a partnership with Yahoo to supply them with our event feed, content syndication, which wasn't a big thing at the time. I mean, now it's all been done and dusted and, seems obvious, but at the time it never was. So to kind of get specifically to your question, success doesn't go in a straight line. It just depends on whether or not you've got the nuts to roll with the punches. I nearly packed it in a couple of times.
Well, can I ask what are your memories of the biggest punches to the head of people just where you just went, here we go? Because no, I can't even imagine. Like if you're going up against Ticketek and Ticketmaster, and trying to be the biggest ticketing platform in the country, you must have had some serious backstabs.
Which we're not.
Some moments where you got to work or you opened your emails and just went, "This is happening? Are you fucking serious?" Like, what's an example of a time where you just went? oh my God, this is next level. This could take us down, or we're going to have to fight dirty.
Well, having the government compete was probably the biggest. But that's a big event. That's a one-off kind of thing. I think the biggest thing was talking to people in the industry, like the big promoters, who basically had a closed shop and said, when I went to them and said, this is what we're doing, we can help you with this. They were like, nah, fuck that. We're not going to let you do that. You're not going to get anywhere in this town. You're fucked. You're out. We're going to crush you.
Wow.
Cut forward years later, I remember a conversation with my commercial director who rang me up. I was at home and said, we just got our first check from promoter X because they were putting on a big international act at a stadium and knew that they had to advertise on Eventfinda to reach the audience that they needed to sell tickets to. So we ended up getting paid.
When they knew they had to.
That's a
great sentence, isn't it? That's just such a success story right there.
Because we had the audience.
Yeah.
So, that's the good news bit at the end. Weathering 1,000 of those conversations and still thinking that you're right and everybody else is wrong is often seen as arrogance.
Sure.
And when you're trying to do that, so I'm not the person I used to be. I used to portray myself as brash, hard-charging, and arrogant. And I was an asshole.
But did you have to be that way?
I thought I did at the time.
Yeah.
But now that you look back, do you think it was still a key to the success? That if you hadn't been? I mean, I can't imagine if you were soft and empathetic to those companies, you could have gotten ahead the way you did.
To be honest, yes.
Yeah. I really can't imagine that if you tried to be more open,
if you're soft,
and soft, towards those people,
wouldn't be where you are now.
Right? I mean, you're dealing with people that aren't being that way towards you. I mean, someone saying to you, "No, we will thrush you, we'll crush you, fuck you."
Like literally.
Yeah. I mean, if they're saying that to you, I mean, you can't come back Gandhi style and just be like, "Okay, well, we'll just."
No.
Yeah.
No, you don't. War is expensive. But a war of attrition goes to the man who can take the fucking most pain for the longest period of time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, wow. I mean, it's such an incredible... I can't even imagine that
By the way,
journey.
I'm not trying to make myself brave. I was just thinking in my head, what a fucking idiot.
But how do you go forward?
But there must be a level of letting yourself...
No, you go.
Oh, mate.
You go. You're more important.
It's literally like watching a married couple. This is actually the conversation that I'm here for, watching this.
I'm getting drunk now off G's Ombok. Is it Ombok?
Yeah,
no, he's thrown in a product placement.
I'm saying a bit quiet on
through
this podcast, but yeah.
No, but I think we were asking the same question. Like there must have. I can't even remember what we're saying.
Because
but you have to stay strong.
You're really onto something here because it's about. I think where your question lies, it's about how you deal with adversity.
Yeah.
Like in the current situation, we just had a bit of a chat on the rooftop about another website that I got going called Bali Holiday Secrets that went ballistic because of I wrote articles about using ATM machines in Bali.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So here's what you guys.
That's it. Yeah.
Here's what you guys don't know. So I just brought on a business partner for that who's going to help me write and execute on it. Here's what you guys don't know. You kind of do, but you've never heard this. You know that's Bali Holiday Secrets is actually the 4th website. So I failed in the last 3 years 3 times before that website was launched.
Oh, really?
So the first one was called the Bali Experience Company, which was going to be about tours. And it didn't work because I couldn't get enough organic traffic or I couldn't buy enough paid traffic to convert those to customers to make the business viable. Mm-hmm. But there was an article that I wrote for my Villa Koru, instead of sending an email to my friends called, because they'd ask me, how do you use ATMs in Bali? Can you use the money changes?
Which is very dodgy. I've seen, I've been to an ATM where I pulled off the top and gone, that's a fake number. I'm just like throwing it on the ground.
This does not fill me with confidence, Phil.
I'll go to the next one, throwing it off, I've been there with ATMs here. So you got to be really careful.
Oh, yeah, there's some serious setups here. There's some dodgy.
New Zealand, you don't have to worry about that.
And people want to know about the stuff, right? That's what I discovered. Yeah. So anyway, I had this article on Villacoro because I posted it on the web.
And it was
just to send people.
That was literally
I'm lazy.
Just to so you didn't have to rewrite to your friends over and over again which ATMs to use and how to avoid the bad ones.
And then that begot other articles. So
and then suddenly that just got traffic.
Bali Experience Company didn't do anything, but it gave me data. So I launched another website called Bali Go Where, and I made it a directory. So all of the, your map.
Yeah,
all of the cafes,
my personal map,
beach clubs as a directory, but it wasn't unique content. But I got shitloads of data from that, and I realised why it didn't work. It also pulled a heap of traffic from other people, like the Bali Bible, for example, inadvertently.
Oh, the Bali Bible's massive.
It was. But they got away from doing what made them great to begin with.
Right.
So I thought I'd do what made them great to begin with. But it didn't scale well. So I changed that website called Bali Go Where by putting articles on it that people wanted. And shit kind of took off in a little way, but it was also full of crap. So I canned that and launched a new website called Bali Holiday Secrets with 7 foundation articles. Tips on using ATMs while you're in Bali. How to not get ripped off by money changers in Bali. What you need to know about Bali taxis. 13 tips for hiring a private driver. And traffic just went fucking ballistic.
I guess it's those, what some people would call fails, the initial attempts at building a business that didn't take off. But you take the data from that and you look at the things within that did spike, and then you just take those particular things and rebuild based on that.
Oh, and I very much learnt this. So that specific thing, that specific philosophy, I learnt off James, my co-founder in Eventfinda. So he believes in fail fast, fail early. So they were disposable to me because I was looking for what works. And because I just kept going, I found out something that did work. I mean, Bali Holiday Secrets by December 2019, January of this year, went from 7,000 people, because I wasn't watching in June, to 40,000 visitors a month and selling $30,000 worth of tours in 7 months. Wow. So my point being is that sometimes the failures are just pointing in the right direction. They just narrow your focus to find out what it is that people want. And then when you find out what people want, give it to them, which is half that equation. Now, if the other half of the equation is that I wrote an article called The Best Live Music in Bali. And it ranks number 1 when you search for best live music in Bali, which naturally, the first item on the list is The Orchard.
Yeah.
Which gets 90% of the clicks, right? Because it's first on the list, because it's part of that, I recommend this place, and there's also other places. So if we do the same for festivals, when people ask me, how the fuck are you going to find customers for your festivals? I've already got them on Bali Holiday Secrets. That's why we're going to write
just
about
a matter
festivals.
Of pointing them in the right direction.
Yeah.
Everyone's looking for something to do. Oh. Yeah.
So the failure of the websites or apps or whatever is never so much about the execution, but it's about pushing the boat out and gathering the data to learn why it failed.
Right.
And I think this is what the music industry is missing. And as artists, I got a question for you. We've talked about this before. When it comes to how do you personally get more gigs?
See, this is the.
Yeah. Well, it's word of mouth.
And so
it's word of mouth.
And
a lot of it.
I believe that it should be data-driven.
Yeah, well,
and
I mean,
we talked about this, and then Corona hit, and it all got fucking fallen by the wayside.
It's such a strong point, because with artists, obviously, I mean, man, you just say the word artist, the last thing you associate with an artist is data, information, understanding of anything technical.
But you're a business.
Like, you know, I know that. Like, artists have to run as a business, and especially more and more today. Like, musicians especially are suddenly thrown into a digital age where we have access to the whole world. We have access, the ability to record things at home on a small amount of technical
But your
gear.
care factor for that side of the business is 5/8 of fuck all, right?
Exactly. Like, we're so, you know, we have all this at our fingertips, but it's so rare that an artist has the ability or the drive to understand anything technical, because generally an artist is just, you know, 99% a creative fuck up, right? Like, our creativity is driven by some dark demon that just hides under a bed and sculls whiskey, and so you're wanting to pour
Which
that.
is where entrepreneurship comes from. It's exactly where I come from. Same place, creating something out of nothing that didn't exist before. I'm not an artist, but it comes from the same place.
Yeah, well, I think I've told you before, like, I remember seeing you when you were helping me do my website with for Bullet and Cass, my folk duo, and you were getting together some data and some code or whatever it is that you do to help build that website to develop a platform for us so that we could tour and we could get, you know, fans to sign up and get more information and all that kind of stuff. I just remember watching the look of excitement and passion that overtook you as you were doing it, and it started to become a thing, and it started to work. It was the exact same amount of excitement and passion that overtakes me when I'm writing a song, and I feel it forming, and it just overwhelms me, and then I'm in it.
And you have to do it.
Yeah.
And then it comes out of you as opposed to trying to force it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it becomes completely natural.
But the reason for that is because the musicians or performers who have done exceptionally well in the last decade have understood that. You know, they've made themselves the brand. They have a direct connection with their customers. They don't rely on the ticketing companies. They don't rely on the booking agents. They've got management teams that are now focused on data, which begets social media. I mean, they're posting at certain times of the day. Even now, I'm testing with the Seminyak Music Festival. We've got like 150 followers, right? And the next year, we'll turn that into 50, 100,000, 200,000. And we'll do it by analysing what day of the week, at what time, do people react to certain types of designs or post. It's split testing everything.
About the data.
But musicians aren't built for that. So another part of the industry that's broken comes back to my 3 rules for life, which clearly we're leading into and ain't going to fucking happen.
Don't date an artist.
Don't date an artist.
Don't manage a band.
Don't manage a band.
And don't shave your chest.
Be nice to your mum. Don't shave your chest.
Shave your balls. Don't shave your balls without cream.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Oh, well.
So the chances of you know, several times I've gone to start a management agency because doing this at scale is necessary, because you just don't have the time and resources to put into that. So when you think of, and there's no need to name them, but when you think of the big international musician brands, that's literally what they do. They are data companies, they're their own labels, and they bring other acts into it. They become the new labels, the new record companies, because they can work at that kind of scale. And that's when they bring, the reason why they bring on new musicians and artists and break them and make them successful and make a fuck ton of money, is because they're using their own platforms and doing what made them successful and making that available for others. So the part of the broken industry problem is that if you ain't Jay-Z or Beyonce or the Stones or that level, you don't have access to that because they are doing it at massive scale. And somehow we've got to solve that. So part of solving that through the Seminyak Music Festival will always be that the artists that play for us will have access to our data. Now, that's not a throwaway line. That's actually a pretty fucking cool thing.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's a beautiful position you're in, is that you're you know, you've come over here. Like what? And back to that, like what brought you here to Bali in the first place? Because it's quite random that like someone with your background with Eventfinda and all that knowledge you've gained from creating that, and now suddenly you find yourself in Bali. I mean, you've got to ask, what the hell are you doing here in Bali, wanting to even try and build this?
New Zealand wants to know
Why are you
what Michael's doing here.
What are you doing, Michael?
Come
Why
on,
are you
talk
even
to
here
New
doing
Zealand.
this?
They're
Like,
right there.
So this is the Shanghai flip, right?
the Shanghai flip. Here we
We
go.
talked about this earlier.
You're going
We
to turn
talked
this
about
back.
this
Yeah, politician.
Flip this back to my
Politician
father.
talk. So here's the short version. Over a decade building Eventfinda cost a lot. Health, marriage, family relationships. People, my good friends and family would hesitate to get in touch with me. And I hate this. I'm truly embarrassed because they thought I was too busy and important. You've got no idea how much that hurts. And I burnt out several times. And James, my co-founder, became CEO a couple of years before I left, and it worked out really well. He's a great CEO. I'm good at growing things, not good at managing things. I'm not good at data. All this data stuff I actually learned off him. So I had to get away and do something else. I literally had to get away and do something else. I've got to do the next thing because this is just going to kill me. I'm literally, I was in the doctor's once and my blood pressure was 199 over 122, and she said, I have to take you to the hospital.
Wow. So it was a breaking point for you.
Oh, yeah, very much so.
Like it was an absolute necessity that you find a way to relieve your position.
Oh,
and
absolutely,
get the fuck
yeah.
out.
And so, you failed relationships with family and friends, and it was, I just can't do this anymore. I'm literally going to have a heart attack and fucking die. So I had to find a way to step out, and luckily I had some really good friends that we had booked a holiday to Bali to on January the 1st, and my world fell apart during the course of that year, and they convinced me to still come. My best friends. And we're here at a villa in Bidadari, and I'd been here before, and I just felt the weight of the world come off my shoulders. I could start to think again. I had to swim in the pool, walk on the beach. Being next to the water is my happy place. We're having a few beers, having some good food. It's a nice place. There's lots of creativity here, which I loved. And I think these guys were kind of prepping me because we'd be on the bikes and we'd stop. I'd feel a tap on the shoulder and one of the girls would say, stop. I should take a photograph of Villa for rent and pick up the phone and say, it's only, you should live here. Wasn't in the mindset at all. So I lost the plot for a while and went riding my motorcycle around New Zealand, couch surfing. And then I went to Shanghai and Buenos Aires on really cheap Air New Zealand flights. I'd grab a seat, I'd just grab one and go anywhere. Went to lots of different places, and I couldn't help but thinking that Bali was a place that ticked all the boxes. Close enough to home. It's only 8 hours direct when you can get a direct one. Great climate, beaches, wonderful people, wonderful food, great live music scene. Very, very creative place. So it ticked all the boxes, so I moved here. And then I landed here and went, what the fuck am I doing? With a laptop and an overnight bag going, what am I going to do? How do I...
It's so great, though, that you followed that. I mean, that's really is the story of so many people, myself included, You come here and there's just something about this place that just grabs you and you feel... It's so strange because so many people from so many different walks of life, whether you're a surfer or into yoga or into music or into just getting off your head clubbing, like it doesn't really matter which extremity you're into. You find a niche. There's something about this place that just everyone says the same thing. Like whatever they're into, they all talk about that they express it the way you just expressed it.
Because there's two Balis, right? So there's the Bali that I hear people going, oh, fuck that, I've been there, I hate it, right? Because they had a week in Kuta.
Yeah.
And then there's everything that's not that. Like, for example, the Orchard and the live music scene. You know, it's not just about the rice fields and the waterfalls and the over-commercialisation of places. It's about the creativity and the type of people that you actually meet here, and not just expats, foreigners, but the locals, the Indonesian population who come here to express their music, to express their art. And it's really invigorating. It's inspiring. It inspires the crap out of me.
Especially once you're here for long enough to drop below the layers of the tourism scene that you're probably only going to see when you first come here. I mean, I don't even notice the tourists anymore. I mean, after 11 years here, I mean, you know, as soon as you get into especially being a musician and being in the music scene here, it's not even on my. It's so far off my peripheral now, the tourist scene, that I'm only really aware of the people that I mix with, and you know, that's all within the
I've got one for you.
That's all deeply ingrained within the actual local music scene and the people within that, and you know, for me to even notice the tourist scene is only when a friend visits and says, "Oh, come out with me." And I go, okay, so I go with them to a tourist place, and I'm like, oh, that's right, it's a real tourist island, right? Like,
yep.
But yeah, it's you know, there's so many layers to this place.
You're a good puppy dog.
Yeah, well, mate, like,
so I got an origin story for you, because I think
roll with it.
Part of your questions have kind of been around how the fuck did you get to do that run? So I live in a villa that is about 300 metres away from the Orchard. And I didn't even drop in for a beer once for over a year, because I was thinking to myself, I don't want to be one of these people who just, you know, comes from New Zealand or Australia and hangs out with expats. So I literally didn't go there for a year. Didn't know Graham at all.
Assuming that it was that kind of a bar, just an expat bar.
No, to be honest, it wasn't even on my radar. I'd ride past it a million times, but just wasn't there. Mm. And I was sitting at home one night, and I was actually researching local music. It's just because it's always going to be my passion. That's where this always comes back to, right? My passion for, I don't want to be the guy on the stage. I want to help people be on the stage. I want to make the stage that they can be on. I can't sing for shit. I can't play a note. Don't have a musical bone in my body, but I love it when I see it and hear it. And so to be linear about this, something popped up on my Facebook feed, and it was Graham doing a live stream. And I put the cans on and went, this is just off somebody's phone, but fuck, this sounds fantastic. And I still remember the band, and I still remember the singer. And I looked it up online and realised it was the pub around the corner.
Do you remember the name of the band?
Yeah.
Who was it?
It was Rita, actually.
Oh, Rita. Nice.
Oh, she's amazing, yeah.
And even being videoed through a phone, I heard something that I had to...
She's got a crazy good voice.
Yeah. Mental
and I went,
voice.
this is in Bali. And then I realised it was the pub around the corner. So I jumped on my bike and went around there and grabbed a beer and waited until I saw a guy with the phone and said, is that you doing this? And that was Graham Stall from the Orchard, and that was the first time I met him.
Oh, wow. Awesome.
Wow.
Love it.
First love.
And so since then, we've not just done things like the Bali Musicians Appeal. Yeah. Now we're on to the Orchard presents the Seminyak Music Festival.
Yeah, that's great. I love those.
And trying to create a stage.
I love those.
I love that.
So that's an origin story.
But it's a backstory, which is beautiful.
Yeah, I love the way
it's authentic, because seriously, you cannot make that shit up.
No, you can't.
Yeah, it's always coincidence and just a bizarre lining up of things that...
But Bali's like that. Bali's just that weird thing.
Well, it's small enough that whatever you're into, you get pulled towards the other people that are into that, and then you just suddenly you're thrown into the same room together and you're talking about the same shit. I mean,
Bali's weird like that.
It makes sense.
Very strange organism.
I found that fascinating because I was literally researching the local music scene online 300 metres away when something popped up in my Facebook feed, because Facebook knows everything, so they knew I was looking at that. I wasn't even connected to the orchard, and I literally hadn't been there at all, had been living here for a year, and that's how I met Graham.
Yeah,
and then found out his backstory, which is 17 years progressing local artists, being the hub of a community as opposed to just trying to, buy them as cheap as you can and provide any entertainment on the night. It's one of the reasons why
that is
why
Bali,
breaking
that's
bands
been Bali
there.
for a long time. Cheap as chips.
Yeah, so we got to fix. So we got to help fix that.
Yeah,
Right, we all have to help fix that, because one of the things that just breaks my heart, even before this horrendous fucking year, is taking some friends or family or guests down to the beach and seeing musicians that I know playing in front of some beach bars down there and figuring out that they're getting paid $5 or $10.
yeah.
Well, that's
Just fucking
That's
wrong.
the brutality of the entertainment industry, is that it's always presumed that it's your side hustle.
It's your hobby,
And it's your hobby, yeah. And that you're the first thing to be cut off as soon as things go south. It's the first people that get cut off are the entertainers, and it's assumed that.
So it's very few people in the industry that I've met in a few decades. One of Graham's great talents is that that's not what he cuts off. That's what he focuses on.
Yeah.
And focusing on that right now means that the orchard is getting full a few nights a week, and a whole bunch of other places, 99% of places are shut. But a whole bunch of other places are doing 5/8 of fuck all. And they're trying to emulate him, right? They're trying to copy him.
Yeah, he's got live music, like still 5 nights a week, still going hard.
And it's not,
and
it's not just blowing sunshine. It's paying respect for somebody who is doing the same thing that I talked to you about, which is facing into the adversity, and instead of backing away from it, leaning into it and fucking doubling down, going, you know what?
Well, even last time...
If we're going to go down fucking swinging, we're going to go down waving the sword and take as many of those fuckers with us as we possibly can, rather than just rolling over and dying, right?
Yeah, but that's the beauty of someone that's absolutely 100% passionate about what they do. They really do go down with the ship, because they are part of the ship. Like, you can't remove yourself from the ship when it's just ingrained into your bloodstream. Yeah, mate.
Oh, well.
Dude, I think we should wind up. We've hit.
Sweet.
We've had
my laptop's about to explode.
It's been an awesome.
Cool.
Thanks for popping by. It's been an awesome chat. This is great.
I'm just glad I got invited. Finally.
Thanks, Michael.
It was about time, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You'll be back in a month. I'll be back down. We'll.
Well, one thing I know for sure
get
is
some
that
more artists up there.
We're going to do something.
Yeah.
Something's going to turn out great sooner or later. All we have to do is just keep staying alive, breathing in and out, help the people around us, help each other, because one day when the shit is over, we're all going to fire together.
Yeah.
It's the only way forward, mate. And that attitude, we've all got to keep remembering that attitude, because I tell you what,
it's hard,
in
right?
the dark days, in these corona days when you're on your own and you can't see much work coming in, and it feels like there's no light at the end of the tunnel. As we turn the camera
off, we'll talk about depression.
Yeah.
Right. Cheers, guys.
Well, let's fight against that
Thanks
together.
for coming down
Rock
for the
and roll.
podcast.
Thanks, man. All right. Thanks for listening, people. Adios. The Bali Rooftop. Stay involved.
Thanks for having us.